following episode contains opinions of the people discussing experiences with the organization called the Church of Satan. It is not to be confused with the Church of Satan by Anton LaVey, but rather the business started by Peter Gilmore and his partner Peggy Nadramia. The opinions expressed are not the opinions of Third Side Network as a whole. This is a private conversation made public with full permission by those on this episode of Satan Speaks.
No, he literally said, man, that if you misgender someone, then you're a bigot and you cannot be a Satanist. You know, I always thought that, you know, when you're seeking vengeance on your enemy, somebody who does you wrong, you want to hit them below the belt. You want to, you know, and then that's what the Satanic Bible says. So wouldn't you want to not use that person's pronoun because you know that's going to hurt him the most? For him to protect a certain class of people is just beyond the pale.
Right.
Individuality by Boyd Rice, taken from the book No. On June 6, 2006, an occult sect held a public ceremony in Hollywood, California. 666. Get it? The media was invited and coverage ensued. The main question asked of participants was, what was this sect really all about? Was it a genuine religion? Their answers were nearly always the same, almost scripted. Our group, they said, is not a religion or belief, but rather a philosophy of individualists, a clearinghouse for people expressing their individuality. Sounds great in concept, yet why would so many individualists say exactly the same thing, word for word? Stranger still, those responding to the inquiry all looked virtually identical. All were dressed in black suits, shirts, and ties. Many had shaved heads and goatees, mimicking the iconoclastic image of their founder. How is it that people so fervently devoted to expressing individuality should come together in such a sea of undifferentiated conformity? Could it be that the concept of individuality is as empty a construct, every bit as meaningless as that of equality? The proof of the pudding, as they say, is in the tasting. Once again, individuality exists as an ideal to be aspired to rather than a manifested actuality. It is an abstraction, a symbol. Contemporary society adores abstractions and symbols. The concept of individuality is everywhere heralded, yet nowhere seen. It is trumpeted the most by those who embody it the least. If a despotic form of rule wanted to keep its populace in line, only the most foolish regime would tell its people, do as we say, or you'll be punished. No, the surest way would be to inform them that they're free and equal, that they're all unique individuals. Man's bottom line behavior and public proclamations are rarely, if ever, one and the same. People desire individuality, but are desperately in need of identity, and the two are not synonymous. Identity is to be found within the context of the group, never in a no-man's land, a fortress of solitude, or upon a remote mountaintop. Identity resides within group thought, group belief, and group fashion. It is to be found in fads, sects, and subcultures. Its uniforms, accoutrements, and accessories can be purchased over the counter because they are mass-produced. Uniqueness plays no role in identity, nor could it. Uniqueness, by its very nature, is its utter antithesis. So where exactly is the place where identity and individuality intersect or overlap? Don't bother to look for it, because it only exists as an abstraction in the minds of those who desire both and possess neither.
Welcome, gentlemen. Jeff, I'd like to introduce you to Sean Stoltenburg. He resigned from the COS recently. Contacted me, wanted to come on the show and give his story. I met Sean briefly in 2016 at Peter and Peggy's house. talked briefly. But yeah, welcome, Sean.
Welcome, sir.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, we met at the 50th anniversary, and then actually, when I did resign, you were one of the few people I actually talked to after that, because I was selling all the um, books and keepsakes and stuff. So you were, I think, the only person I talked to after that. I'm pretty sure everybody else pretty much had me blocked or otherwise disappeared.
Right. Yeah, they are told who they can and can't associate with.
So do you want me to just kind of tell you how I got into it, or you want me like how I got out?
Yeah, everything. If you want, it's your show. I'm giving you the forum to air any grievances and explain to the audience why you did it and why you are not a detractor. All of the above.
Well, yeah, I'll go with that first. Actually, when I did resign, um, I did say in my letter that because I had such respect for this philosophy that had brought me so far, that they would not see me be a detractor. However, I am not detracting LaVey's work. Had they stayed in line with what the philosophy is, there wouldn't be a need to kind of out them for what they are. So I joined the COS in 2015, I think it was. Yeah, it was 15. I had read the Satanic Bible when I was a kid. Didn't I spent more time hiding it from my parents. It was just something to kind of be, edgy at the time. It wasn't until I was about maybe 22 or 23 that I read it again, and like everybody says, saw myself reflected in it. And then it would be a few years later that I would actually decide to join. My band ended up playing with a band that had a singer who was kind of a childhood icon of mine at the time. And so I started a friendship with him. He was a member. And what happened was in my area, we had these Craigslist killers that made it onto the news for a few months because this girl claimed that she had been a part of all these satanic cults in like Alaska and killed all these people, and she was a serial killer, which all this bullshit. But the COS actually wrote a piece for my local newspaper to kind of say like that's not what we do. So that's what kind of brought it back into my world. And then talking with this guy, he kind of, I guess, mentored me in a way. He kind of gave me the lowdown on the books to check out, and kind of gave me a feel for how things were. And so I spent a year just studying all of LaVey's work. I'd only read the Satanic Bible previous to that, so I read everything and several times, and I read things that were on the bibliography or on the Church of Satan reading list, and I read things that members had written. And after a year, I felt that I had it down pretty good, so I decided that it was time to join. I had some goals before I joined that I had to meet, some financial goals and personal goals, which I met. I sent in my active membership application along with my, initial $200, and I think it only took about a month for me to get my response. I got my first envelope, and then I think it was October that I got my second envelope, adding me as an active member. So one of the things that Satanism, why it stuck out to me as why it meant so much to me was the personal responsibility aspects. That's really what I utilized to get my financial goals in order and to get myself. I mean, I was 260 pounds, heavy smoker, drinking like, not every day, but most days. I really used that personal responsibility to get myself to be the person that I wanted to be. pretty soon after joining, I kind of had the feeling like, maybe this wasn't what I thought it was going to be. I mean, I think everybody has it maybe built in their head a little bit of what they think it might be. And then you get there and like, oh, this just kind of seems like a Facebook group. And I wasn't so sure that. So I spent some time kind of just lurking in the group to see who was interesting. And I found a few people I had some things in common with. I continued studying. I never stopped reading. I read a great deal of the bibliography from the Satanic Witch. Anything that was affordable. A lot of those books are really expensive. But I would just buy all these used books off Amazon, and I'd just have stacks of them, and I'd read quite a few. I was also communicating with Peter and Peggy on a pretty regular basis. I was maybe every couple months I'd send them a pretty long letter saying like what was going on in my life, how I utilized the philosophy to do the next thing. I had used lesser magic and several things that are talked about in the Satanic Witch or in other essays, and I ended up getting a promotion that was it was overnight. I became like my boss's boss. So I sent him in with stuff like that. All of my stuff was really focused on real world stuff. I was in bands. We were pretty successful putting out records. I started putting out records on my own. I ended up in a second band that was also putting out records and playing a lot of shows. I was doing a lot, but I had the feeling that unless I was doing something for them, it wasn't going to count. And I probably did cow a little bit. I did. Once you invest yourself in something like that, it's really difficult to face the reality of what it actually is. So I kind of just kept telling myself, oh, there's people doing stuff that I just don't know about. And, and I was talking to this guy, my mentor, who got elevated to a priest, and then that was enough for me. Just having him and knowing that I was utilizing the philosophy was enough for me to stay in for quite a while. I think so after the 50th anniversary, the 50th anniversary itself, I had a great time. I didn't talk to many people. I tried to talk to two people, and both of them just like totally blew me off. So like I kind of was like, all right, forget it. Yeah, no, I mean, it's like people's opportunities to be the cool guy. I mean, so, I get it. So it was like people I'd had long conversations with on private messenger, but who are you? It's like, all right, asshole, you know who I am. But, so there was a little bit of that, but I was okay with it. Just a few things happening there that gave me a little pause. The way a couple people had kind of acted. Got to see people in firsthand whose work I had read, and I just, started to kind of feel like maybe this wasn't exactly where I was supposed to be. But I, again, was invested. I had, one of my best friends was being very recognized by them. So like, he was encouraging me. So I had my circle. I don't know if I listed all the things that kind of gave me pause. It would take us this whole interview. So I mean, I guess
go for it.
Over some of them. I mean, there was many things. Like, so there was a guy. So many Spreadshirt accounts that are supposedly businesses, like where you just upload a design and then you sell it on a shirt and you act like you have a t-shirt company. I do that for my band, but I don't pretend I have a t-shirt company. It's just, affordable. I know like when this person had put out a shirt and he even left the shirt so that whoever was buying it could write their own quote on the shirt. And I said, that seems like a bad idea. So we're going to say that this is an official Church of Satan shirt with the official Baphomet, and then any jerk-off's going to be able to write whatever they want on it. I felt that was a bad idea, so I spoke up and I said, well, maybe we shouldn't do that because, somebody's going to put, Crowley quotes, and it's going to be an official Church of Satan t-shirt. And I think that's maybe not, a good look. And I got shouted down pretty well.
By who?
By the guy and Peggy. She's like, well, I think it's a wonderful idea. Okay, well. Then there was when the Satanic Warlock came out. It was, I don't remember. I pre-ordered it right away. Back edition with the gold leafing, and what a waste of stuff for such a shitty book.
Absolutely.
But it looked like great, and I thought it was going to be interesting. If I had seen how that guy acted at the 50th anniversary, I probably would not have pre-ordered the book. Drunk and lip syncing to Sympathy with the Devil for like a excruciating 4 minutes was kind of a rough one. But but the book took like a year and a half to come out or something. Like, it was forever. It was
double spaced because it was lacking content.
Yeah, no, it was supposed to be coming out, and like I figured it was a couple month wait, and it ends up being longer and longer. And I don't say anything, but I'm checking my emails. It was like over $100. It's like, I kind of want to know where my money went. And it's just months and months go by, and I see people just asking like, hey, what's going on with this book? Like getting like, well, good things take time, and we don't want to rush it. And it's like, if you're running a business, you should keep your customers in the know of what's going on with their $100, that with the book that's not being produced, instead of staying silent about it and then yelling at anybody who's asking questions about it. It was stuff like that started to, and these are high-ranking people in the COS, and
being defensive.
It really made me think like maybe they weren't looking for the same things I were in who I would have thought would be elevated. To me, we should be, if we're the alien elite, then if we're so elite, then our business practices should reflect that. Lots of stuff like that. There was many things I can't think of offhand. So there was definitely, or there was the guy that writes like 500 books a year, and it's like how, and I read one, and the content wasn't all that impressive. It's just like, why putting out books just to put out books? And I think I'd seen a couple. It was like maybe the start of the GoFundMe's, and it wasn't syncing with my interpretation of personal responsibility. So I started having a little bit of misgivings. As I'm reading the books from the bibliography, it was cool to see the things that LaVey had taken out. Like you could read those books and you could see what he used and utilized in his philosophy and what he chose not to use. But there were a lot of ideas that he chose not to use for his philosophy that were interesting to me. And they still were within the tenets of Satanism. They were still, they didn't break any of the rules. And so I started reading some of those books and, taking them same as he did. There's parts that spoke to me, parts that were useful, parts that weren't. But I got the feeling that reading books outside of what is assigned was giving me they were starting to get suspicious of me. So like my interactions with Peter and Peggy started dropping off. It went from nice, cordial responses to pretty much like no responses. I'd send in stuff like my albums would come out and they stopped posting them on the timeline. And I was like, all right, well, obviously I said the wrong thing at some point. Also, I started, so I lost a lot of weight, but I also started lifting. So Paul Wagner, the Operation Werewolf stuff at that time. I was reading a lot of that. I talked to Paul a couple times. No, I didn't end up like being like a full affiliate with that. I mean, I did end up going to one of their events and stuff, but I mean, it was a good group of guys that I had a lot in common with that were on the path of building muscle, and their philosophy I thought
Self-deification.
was
Yeah.
what's that? Yeah, no,
Self-deification.
and really the philosophy in it didn't seem. It seems like almost like the Satanism that I would have been looking for. It was all that personal responsibility.
Right.
I mean, they use different archetypes, but there's no. At the time, I didn't see any sort of actual spirituality, so I felt like it was still atheist. It's not, and I'm not either. So I naturally moved out of Satanism, but but I'm reading these books, and then there's just like I really could tell I was stepping on toes by mentioning them. I just and
May I ask what books?
Paul's books, the first Transmissions, which is a collection of his essays.
Yeah, those are great books.
Yeah, no, and I read like the Jack Donovan's first book, The Way of Men, and actually there was stuff that like Underworld Amusements was putting out that I was that Confessions of a Failed Egoist was a great book. But I really got the impression that I was not to be reading these books. So as I'm kind of moving forward with my fitness progression, I kind of left doing bands and stuff so I could focus on, really getting my stuff in order. There's only so old you can be and still be going to bars and playing all the time.
Right.
So I kind of started really focusing on career and still gradually kind of just moving away. I stopped interacting, and what ended up happening is I ended up meeting all kinds of different people through these other venues. One of the people I met was one of the guys that runs Atwar, which is like an offshoot of like Charles Manson's like Atwa. So I ended up like doing this dark ambient record that was themed as Charles Manson's life, kind of. It was based on him, and it kind of played with this idea where he saw himself as this deity, like Abraxas. So I was playing with a little bit of I guess theism kind of things. So I didn't want to share it on the COS page because it didn't go along with Satanism. Without them having a full understanding of what it was. It's not like I really believe in this god Abraxas. It's just that I'm kind of exploring this thing. So I just sent them a copy of it, and I sent them saying like, this is based on Charles Manson. It's this, and I explained the whole thing. It was a pretty convoluted project. And I got a response back from Peter that was, well, you were right to tell us. We're not going to post it on the page, which was fine. But then he went on a paragraph about what Anton LaVey privately told him about Charles Manson. He thought Charles Manson was a bum and a criminal and a racist. And
that doesn't sound like something LaVey would say.
Yeah, no, not at all. So I just said, well, I don't care what LaVey said. He didn't write it in his books, so it's not part of it. So I don't care what he personally thought about every little detail. I care what he wrote in his philosophy, what he decided to put in there.
If I could say one thing about that, just so I don't forget, it ties into what you were talking about. It's kind of funny that he would say that Anton LaVey would have said that, because in the 80s, Boyd Rice had the Abraxas Foundation. And Boyd Rice, as many know, was very close to Anton LaVey. So someone who was regularly visiting Charles Manson in prison, who was pen pals essentially with him, and was kind of toying with that aesthetic and those archetypes, it would seem as though if at any point he wanted that to kind of cease, it would have taken place during that period, which it did not. So that
Right. He
sounds
would
to
have put
me
a
like total
stop to it
bullshit.
then.
Precisely.
No, me too. Me too. It rang completely of bullshit. And for the same reasons, you know, you look back in some of the photos of in the 80s and stuff, and they're all, you know, I ended up I've spoken with, you know, Nicholas Schreck a couple times. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, but you know, he was heavily involved. He put out a Charles Manson documentary at the time. Like if
Fantastic.
LaVey wanted to, yeah, if he wanted to stop it, he would have just stopped it.
Right.
So I don't know. I really took that as a final. These people are just making this what they want it to be. This
Right.
is their little hobby. This is time for me to go. So I mean, that was kind of the final straw. I mean, the email was just it was scolding. It was very obvious that I was to fall in line. I was probably to abandon this project if I wanted to stay in good standing. So there was no way I was going to do that at that point. So I just took myself out, amicably said, you know, listen, this just isn't where I'm at anymore, but you won't see me becoming like a detractor. I still have respect for the philosophy. However, I have also seen since then how that has gone. This little interaction with me is like one of the seeds that probably happened with a few people that sprouted into this, whatever they're doing now, basically becoming the TST.
Oh, yes.
So, I mean, yeah, so I mean, that's the long and short of how I got in and why I left.
Yeah, I wonder if Anton LaVey told Peter that, Adam, the first or second time that he actually hung out with him. The first and second only time.
Yeah. We've brought this up a couple of times.
So
You look at pictures of Anton LaVey with certain individuals that he was associated with. You can only find like one or two pictures, maybe three, I don't know, pictures of him with Peter. You can find a lot of pictures of Boyd Rice with Anton LaVey. And if you pay attention to interviews, people have given interviews to Anton LaVey. You really read the interviews that Boyd Rice gave to LaVey, and you pay attention to LaVey's replies, you hear a lot of, that's right, you're correct. You don't get that with a whole lot of people that interviewed LaVey. It speaks volumes if you really pay attention.
yeah, I mean, pretty much like the feeling I got was that this is all a charade. Like this is all a charade. They want to have their thing. They want to ensure that it is as widely accessible as possible, which is antithetical to the whole thing, so that they can keep getting their $200 fees and keep paying their mortgage. That's the way it felt to me. Then after I left, so before I had left, my friend that had been my kind of mentor had left before that, which had no bearing in my leaving because he left for a totally different reason. The reason he left is because he was upset that the COS wasn't adopting a liberal political stance in all things. He was mad because the Satanic American or whichever one it was.
Great page.
Yeah, because that existed. He was mad that there was anybody that voted for Trump or would. I don't even know if he wasn't even elected yet, but would have voted for Trump. You know, that's why he left, is because they refused to adopt. He thought they were refusing to adopt these TST kind of ethics. And man, like what a 180! Because now it seems that that's exactly what they did. But I had called him after I left, and he kind of gave me some background on some things that he had been privy to that I wouldn't have, seeing as how he was, you know, the one of the favorites for a short time. So after talking with him, it was pretty clear what the intent of the COS is, which has very, very little to do with the philosophy whatsoever. It 100% has to do with staying in business and having a successful business and having people license the Baphomet and give money. And if you want an elevation, they better have something. It has nothing to
There's
do with
nothing
your personal.
esoteric anymore or magical about it.
No, I don't even know that you have to read all the books to be elevated. It's just it's really
Just don't read these.
yeah, as long as you're just not reading these other books, you're all right. But I don't know if they want people to read all the books. I mean, I think they'd probably rather quote them themselves, and everybody just nod their head and they can cut out all the stuff that they don't like. I feel like that would be easier for them to do what they're doing.
Yeah, because you can't escape the Machiavellian, Nietzsche, Ayn Rand, and the Ragnar Redbeard Might is Right, which is laced throughout the entire philosophy. All one has to do is read Satan Speaks, and you can get a good idea as to where LaVey was as far as when he was observing the modern world at that time, and how he was vehemently against the direction things were going, because he felt that I mean, even going back to books that they probably don't want you to read, Peter's book, The Satanic Scriptures, when, you're reading that and it's talking about the Church of Satan basically being a reaction to, liberalism and the, drug and hippie culture at the time. That's seemingly kind of buried now. They don't want to touch upon that because, that could trigger a few of the cash cows that are currently taking up in the membership.
Yeah,
well, I'd say the cash cows, and then they're old and out of touch, so they don't see the world that the way a lot of younger people do, and I don't know. When you have the Christian church inviting LGBT in and cashing in on that, and then you see the Church of Satan doing the same thing, and they're saying it's a philosophical reason, not a political reason.
The thing is, there's such a difference between turning people away, which they would not do and should not do, and then also carrying that banner for that person and using that as a substitute for a personality and achievements in the world. Be yourself, that's fine, but if that's all that makes up your entire personality, then there's probably, you're a pretty one-dimensional piece of turd at that point.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I mean that's what's happening in the world now is not exactly, it's a million times worse, but it's the same current that he was rising up against in the 60s. For them to just fully adopt it and invite it in it's completely antithetical to the philosophy. It has no place.
They're open members of Antifa within the membership. That in my opinion is just so mind-boggling that not only would they they carry this person's banner. I'm not going to name the person and give them any sort of lend them any credence by naming them, but I think at least one of us here or two of us here know who we're talking about. But yeah, a member of Antifa is vehemently socialistic, is into the whole, do-gooder type of mentality, which is so antithetical to everything that it stood for. And to say that person's book is now going to be canon, give me a fucking break.
Yeah, I did see that. So there's a huge difference between indulgence and hedonism. And that's where the personal responsibility comes in. And I feel like, this just total acceptance allows people to alleviate themselves of having responsibility for themselves or to anybody else. Not to fat shame, but, take a look at a lot of people. They're huge.
Yes.
There was a lot of really big members, and some people have their struggles, and I did too. But, at what point do you look in the mirror and say I'm elite when you're not smart enough to get off the couch?
People like that, yeah. People like that are attracted to an ideology that says it's okay to be that way, and it rewards bad behavior.
Yeah, I mean, at what point do you step in and say, you're too fat to be satanic? You're going to die if you don't take personal responsibility for yourself, and that's the least satanic thing you can do.
Exactly.
I don't know, but that kind of Yeah, and that kind of flows over with, I mean, not just the people that are big, but like it's everybody's just always everybody's celebrating everything about themselves. Nobody is ever talking about anything they need to work on. And
That's a great point.
you're missing the point. Yeah, not you, but yeah, they're missing the point completely. Like
No,
the whole
absolutely, yeah.
thing is to build your life and reinforce yourself and what's the
Being
point of
objective.
yeah, yeah, what's the point of adopting this philosophy if everybody's just going to pat you on the back and tell you you're already doing a great job? Um, and so you can just continue going on with these very these very insignificant things that you do, and you think that they're the world. So many just inane things get held up as these great achievements within that circle.
Hmm.
It was that was one of the things that frustrated me a lot. Um, just there was some real garbage that would come out, and it would be held up as if it was some sort of amazing work of art.
Because
Um,
that person's a
but
sycophant.
yeah, exactly. Um, so books would come out that just
Fuck,
were
self-published
just
books, scary stories. Come on,
yeah,
boring.
no, and I mean all of that like that whole like tentacle porn like the Lovecraft like porn writing and stuff, and it's like what are you guys doing? Like, I mean, I get being into it, but that's like a whole subsect, and it's like,
It's
man,
fashion
like,
to a lot of these people, I think. Yeah, it's kind of like politics, with Antifa and those people. I look at a lot of modern day so-called Satanists the same way. It's fashion. And, they're adopting this aesthetic in order to basically substitute it for any lack of substance. And, they're missing the entire, picture behind it.
there's I'd see people do these just mental gymnastics to try to find a way that they can make their totally meaningless, mundane day into this pinnacle of Satanism. And it'd be like they just justify whatever it is that they do as even their boring job as everything's lesser magic. Not everything's lesser magic. Um, you need to practice it. You need to be able to gain something from it. You can't just say like, um, hey, I wore my back mitt at work today under my shirt, and they knew. It's like I don't know. It's I wasn't I wasn't really there was very few that I was impressed with or that even thought that they were doing anything meaningful. There was no elitism. There was no craft.
Exactly.
Very few people are putting in time and work and effort into their projects. They just, it's like they just find something on Etsy, and then make it a devil, and then it's a official COS thing, and it's
Yep.
Until that
I
person
don't
talks to
understand.
the wrong person.
Yeah, I mean, I want to be pressured to do better. I want to be inspired by the people that I surround myself with. I want to um, have friends that are further along than I am that can help me on my path. I want to help people that aren't where I'm at yet. That's not what was happening there. And I get Satanism's an individualist religion, but I think a lot of them hide behind that. So that's great. If you want to go and do it individually, then do it. Then why are you even on these forums?
Well, you
Why are you even
mentioned
there?
earlier, you mentioned the GoFundMe's, and it's amazing how many GoFundMe's I saw on that secret forum. If you're a Satanist, you should be able to have the resources and the finances to back up your project. If you're going to do it and you're actually successful at doing what you do, why are you begging for money? It just
Yeah,
floored me. And there was one conversation where somebody posted a picture of furniture that they wanted for their ritual chamber, and somebody commented that it was expensive. And then a COS witch said you should ding the furniture and then ask for a discount from the manager. Like, wow. So I commented, I spoke up about that. How fucking satanic is that? And then I got shut down. I got shut down for that. Fucking amazing.
Yeah, that
That's
is
like justifying. Yeah, that's like justifying theft at Walmart because they're a billion-dollar corporation.
Right.
You know,
Social
like
piece of shit, though. You know.
that's yeah, go damage it and then get it for cheaper, then go tell everybody it's lesser man. You know,
right.
you know, it's and then if anybody argues with you, just say third side, bro. You know, and I mean, I don't think that they even understand. Like, I see people, so many of them use the vocabulary that LaVey used, and they just use it. They pepper it into every single paragraph, every single sentence, and I don't think they know what it means. Having a third side is not just saying, well, they're both stupid. That's just an easy way out.
Exactly.
That's having nothing. That's not having a third side. But I would see that being justified for almost every argument where somebody that was an idiot was losing, and it's third side perspective, and no, it's not. It's unsatanic. You know, I mean, there were people there that, you know, I thought that were doing things that were interesting. There were people that I thought seemed successful. But the other thing was that they were really based on this monetary success, which I get that to be successful you have to have some money. But I would think that as in Satanism, the goal is to live your life as you can, whatever it is that makes you happy, surrounding yourself with things that help you and your family and your circle and people you choose to love.
Your tribe.
Making their lives better and richer. That doesn't always mean more money. Now, I mean, you can't be destitute. You need to be able to, buy a car or pay a hospital bill. But, you don't need to be looking for everything. Seemed like they wanted to push it towards just this like corporate kind of success. And it really was because they want more powerful people so that they have more people donating or whatever it is, or they can, somebody can come up with something that they can sell.
Wasn't it funny the people pushing that don't have anything themselves? It's like the people that are quickest to tell you how you should live your life lead the most destructive lives themselves.
Yeah. There was I don't know, there were so many things. I didn't sit and think these out today like I was going to, but there's endless things that I would see that just and the thing is I was so I won't, it's not brainwashed. It's just they're not smart enough to brainwash you. But I mean, maybe some of them. But I was just so kind of used to kind of justifying things because I started seeing this stuff immediately, but I just kept telling myself there was more to it than I could see, and that it would all kind of make sense eventually, and then I'd find this pocket of people that maybe they're the people that are successful or at least are portraying the traits that I feel that embodies Satanism, and they weren't there. There's nobody there. There's nobody hiding in the shadows, doing things the right way. It's all pretty much laid out in the open.
A lot of these people that stick around, I see them as the majority of them, as they probably are, ex-Christians. They're used to being told what to do and what to think and what to study. And so they're at home in that environment. So when you have Peggy in her roundabout way saying that you cannot be friends with these people and you cannot read these books, and she does it in a way where she says, well, I'm not going to tell anybody who they can be friends with on Facebook, but you are judged by who you are associated with. That kind of shit.
Right.
What's individual about that?
Right. So those people are at home. They're like, well, I've got a rank. That defines me. I'm a priest in the Church of Satan, so that defines me. I'm going to allow it to define me because it's something that I'm proud of. It's an achievement for me, and they go with it. And that's not satanic.
They were just,
and
I was just going to say, if the COS was just honest about it, they act like we just kind of pulled this out of our ass, that there's this shift and change and this like paradigm shift that's happening right now. But they act as though, well, this is always how it's been. That I think is what's so frustrating to me. If they were just honest about it and say, yeah, we're making some changes, we're, revising this or whatever, I'd at least have some respect. I still would, find it abhorrent, but I would at least have some respect for them.
yeah, no, that's not how it's always been. That's the same thing modernity does. The same thing they do.
Yep.
They reboot something that and then they add modern day values into the reboot, and they say, "Oh, that's how it always was." No.
Yeah, read Evola, and you'll find out otherwise.
And I'm not sure. I'm not sure what their end game is with this. I don't know if they plan on just being full on TST or if they just plan on dissolving the whole thing. Like, what's going to happen? Where are they planning to go with it after they time out? Is the torch going to be passed down to anybody else? Is it going to maintain a thing? Are they really even thinking about the philosophy itself? Or are they just thinking about staying relevant in the moment? There was a lot of questions to ask myself as I was deciding. Now again, like I was kind of moving out of it. I wanted to be able to have a little more freedom to experiment with ritual is a big thing for me. Very important part of my life. I like to use some stuff from I like to make conjures and have these physical things and use things like that. And I really did not like the way that they talked about ritual. I get that it's a psychodrama and that, but they would always try to just undermine it. At one point, it's this, but it's also this. It felt like they were going to eventually phase it out. Then it was like, oh, there's these new kind of rituals where you can bake a cookie and it's a ritual. And I get that. There are some ritualistic things in making music or something, but it really felt like they were going to turn tail on any of the esotericism that LaVey put in there. I don't know how that's gone since then. That's definitely the way I felt, and I kept up with. There's very few people that I kept up with, but I'd still follow the page and stuff, and I'd just see stuff keep being shared, and it's just I couldn't. The reason I did this is just because I couldn't believe that was actually going in that direction. And I remember specifically, I think it was you, Adam, that posted when you were reading that Boyd Rice book, and you posted a picture of it. And my first thing was, and you can probably vouch for me that when I left, I'd even talk to you, and I did not say a bad word about it. It's just hey, it wasn't for me anymore. But I wanted to really badly be are you allowed to read that? I thought for sure you were going to get in trouble for posting that book. I should be man. And just the fact that I thought that, even having not been in the COS
that's a red flag
for some time then, the fact that I immediately could think oh, Adam's gonna probably get in trouble for that, and then I figured probably not. Nothing must have happened because I saw you also then posted the last testament of Anton LaVey, and I was oh man, I was I guess maybe they're being cool with people reading books now. But then I found out, not really.
Can you imagine for 1 second? LaVey telling someone not to read a book?
No.
I mean, I can't even wrap my mind around him, even saying anything remotely like that.
Were you already gone when you read the Boyd Rice book?
I was gone before that book even came out.
All right.
I would never allow them to tell me what to read.
No, there was a part of me that really wished that I could get back into the Facebook group for just one day when that Last Testament book came out. I was I can only imagine what's happening in there.
Have you read it?
Have you read
it, Sean?
Oh, sorry. No, I haven't read it.
Excellent.
I debated on reading it, but yeah, I just wasn't sure I wasn't sure which way it went with it. So how like I am interested. Is it just like letters between the two?
It's sit
There's a
down
lot of
interviews, a
different
lot of it. Yeah.
content. I couldn't put it down. There's also Aquino's Satanic Bible that came out around the same time too, and there's some good content in there, but there's also some shit where it's like, oh my god, what's he talking
Yeah,
about?
I saw Stanton LaVey like pushing that, so I stayed away from that just because that guy's obnoxious. Um, but yeah, no, I saw this stuff coming, and I was just I kind of felt like I was like, oh, maybe there's some people like turning tail on what's going on there. Like maybe these books come out and some of these people are gonna realize like this is fucking nonsense. Like, well, what gives these people the right to say that they are um, the leaders of this philosophy when they're not even practicing the philosophy?
Well, there's a great part
At
at
what
the end
point?
of that book that Boyd Rice basically just has a bunch of quotations from Anton LaVey, and one in particular, and I know he put it in there on purpose because he's seeing things shift similarly to how we are, where it says conservative organizations, and I'm paraphrasing here, conservative organizations will find that they have more in common with my philosophy than liberals. There's another quote that says, Americanism is Satanism. And, he's basically just chipping away at this false reality that, sure, the COS takes an apolitical stand as far as, not dictating what its members can be affiliated with. However, when you're looking at philosophically, it's right wing. You can't get away from that. And, that's kind of what he's basically holding a mirror up to them and saying, you're basically dishonoring, the late doctor.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, no, the philosophy is certainly right wing. I don't know that it's meant to
Not
be necessarily
Republican.
right wing.
Right.
I think that's what's happening is like the modernity's going so far to the left that almost anything's right wing.
Anything to the right of
By,
Karl Marx is, a Nazi.
yeah. So yeah, exactly. So by the definition of right wing at this point, like yeah, Satanism is undeniably right wing.
Right.
I don't know how it could be interpreted any differently. Maybe not even necessarily just the little politics. It's just the lifestyle. The worldview is one.
Precisely.
Personal responsibility. That's it. It's personal responsibility, taking responsibility for yourself, not turning the other cheek, not accepting everybody for who they are. You choose who
Right.
you want to be with. You choose the people you want to surround yourself with. Choose your path, and that's.
Well, LaVey even talks about in Satan Speaks that he was satanically speaking against abortion. And that's in the book. And, I can't imagine some of these people, if they were to read that book, would probably trigger the shit out of them.
Well, and that's the thing. So he says satanically speaking against
Right.
abortion. Whether or not
responsibility, yeah.
Right, and whether or not he held a personal view, well, that's what he wrote. That's what's in the book. That's what
canon.
matters. All these private conversations don't matter.
Yes,
I've heard a certain warlock in the Church of Satan state that Satan Speaks is not considered canon. It was written by the founder of the Church of Satan, and we're going to consider the Satanic Warlock canon, but not Satan Speaks. What fucking fantasy world do you live in?
Well, that sounds like Christians that are basically saying, I'm going to take this part out of the Bible because it doesn't fit my worldview.
Oh, that's the Old Testament.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's the same argument.
Oh man, it's so frustrating. I'm like frustrated like by proxy. Like no, like just this idea that like these personal conversations he supposedly had have any meaning. I mean, it's not like the guy, died at 40 and like, I mean, he was the leader of this philosophy of this organization for 30 years. He had 30 years to write whatever he wanted to write. People were publishing his books. It's not like anybody was going to not publish a LaVey book. It would have been very easy to write these things, and he didn't write them.
I think he became more militant as he got older.
Well,
I think so too.
A great job summing up Satanism from front to back. It doesn't need to be added onto because it's all said. And people just don't get it. Everybody wants to throw their spin on it and say that I wrote canon. No, you didn't. we don't need another book written from the Church of Satan because it's all there. Everything that LaVey wrote sums it up. We don't need a satanic warlock. We don't need anything coattail writing on any of his work, because if a man can't read the Satanic Witch and apply it to his life as a male, then he was never a warlock to begin with.
Yeah, no, I'd always get frustrated when I'd see guys like, well, I didn't read that one because I figured it was more for women. Like, well, even if that was true, wouldn't you want to know what they're up to? Like that.
Right. Well, yeah. What, you want to get their side of it so you can, manipulate them back.
Right. Like, but yeah, the idea that there even had to be a satanic warlock it was just silly. Totally silly. There's
I remember when you
nothing.
resigned, you sent me an email about the books that you were selling. I'm like, I don't want any of those books.
Yeah, no, I was trying.
LaVey.
Yeah, no, I was trying to do the whole like amicable thing. So it's like I had done what they wanted me to do. I had been a collector. I had gotten all the trophies, and I wanted to see somebody that was a member get them, So I approached you about like, well, maybe make sure people get them, and yeah, you weren't interested, and so I just ended up selling them, highest bidder, because that's what they would have done. That's why they don't release all the copies they have made so that they can privately sell them on eBay. See, like on the back end, like anything that's like limited to 600 copies, it's like probably not, number one, because there's not 600 people buying it. There's probably 300 copies. They're going to sell 100, and then they're going to pretend it's out of print, and then like every so often, pull a hardback Satanic Bible out of their box in the garage and put it on eBay for $200. That was something that irritated the shit out of me too. Was like that everybody was falling for like, oh, they're creating their own market for these things that they're making, and people are like paying top dollar for them. And then nothing was ever special because they always had to capitalize on it. So,
well, as P.T. Barnum said, a sucker's born every minute.
Yeah, the 50th anniversary at dinner, we were given those, those trapezoid keepsakes from My Satanist, and they were great. I mean, they were beautiful. I was pretty stoked about it. And how long was it before everybody was like selling them, and then suddenly like there's it didn't matter to anybody. Like it didn't matter to anybody that they had it or that it was special. It just became something else that they collected that they could then turn around and sell instead of getting a better job, like or whatever. And everything that was supposed to be special stopped being special. Like everything they did kind of just lost its power because it just became, this is unlimited edition. Unless there's enough interest to put out more, then we'll put out more, But so it was natural for them to have to start to write new canon. Everybody's got the books, so they have to write new ones so that people keep buying. And what better way to change the philosophy into what you wanted to do than to have somebody write canon and just deem it canon and change the whole thing. Now I wonder if they had the rights to the satanic
books.
From
Peter and Peggy don't receive royalties from LaVey's books. His children do. So of course they want to capitalize on what they can.
Yeah, exactly. That's was the next thing I was going to say is like, if they had any sort of control over LaVey's work, I wonder if they'd even allow it still to be printed. They might just put a stop to it, or they might edit it and take out the stuff they don't like anymore. And
they did that. So with the Satanic Bible with Peter Gilmore's introduction has the list of the thank you list of people taken out.
Like probably anything that like mentions might is right, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Anything that's problematic, as they like to say.
Well, how can you have a philosophy that like, where the founder openly said like how influential a book like Might is Right is to it, and then still be able to think that it's this super accepting thing?
Have you read that MF magazine interview? It's published on their website still, but on the actual from MF Magazine, and it says, and I quote, "In the late 1960s, Anton LaVey brought forth an easily understandable doctrine of social Darwinism and strong positive thinking," in quotations they have magic, "to the growing mass of individuals sick of hippieism and the stagnant morals of Christianity." And as LaVey was quoted in that magazine, quote, "I'm all for a police state, no messing around. There should be an armed guard on every street corner. The Israelis have the right idea. School bus drivers and McDonald's managers carrying Uzis."
They'll
probably remove that.
That was another thing that I was surprised at how few people ever talked about. There was a lot of people that were, and not even just with guns, but with politics in general. The people that were interested in politics were like okay with this idea that the government should expand onto other people's freedoms, and there's nothing less satanic than that either. I don't think.
Well, they have such a
because
collectivist mentality, which is so weird.
Well, at the time when I was in, like, it was it wasn't so much school shootings. It was all of this. There was a lot of terrorist attacks with guns that were considered terrorism. Like that couple the guy in California and a couple like colleges, I think. But yeah, it was a lot of people saying like, oh well, they should restrict guns here and restrict guns there. And I would wait to be like, who's gonna tell them to fuck off? Like, wait, who's gonna do it? Who's gonna tell them to fuck off? That's antithetical, and never happened. Just more thumbs ups and likes and.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because when I joined the group, see, before that, I only had a few interaction. I read James Sass's book, Essays in Satanism, which is incredible. It's still in my opinion.
That's one I never managed to get to.
If you ever get a chance to find a copy of it, it is absolutely incredible. Sass is, in my opinion, one of the great thinkers within the organization, or at least was. And then, I was exposed to the 1980s, Boyd Rice and all those guys. So I had this idea of what it was going to be like. So then when I decided to join the online community, I posted a few things like at the range. I'm a 6 Hour guy, so I was, trying to get the conversation going about that. And the lack of enthusiasm around it surprised me. But then the comments, there were a few people that chimed in. Kevin Slaughter, for example, he definitely has a similar view on especially weaponry. But yeah, I think that was my like awakening of, I kind of wish I hadn't even, joined this and it just ruined it so much for me.
Yeah, 100%. I'm glad I joined it because that way, if I hadn't joined the online community, I wouldn't have known. I wouldn't have known what they were up to. And then I'd be walking around and I'd be looking like a dick, thinking that I'm one thing and finding out that the organization had totally done a 180. But yeah, no, I mean, immediately after joining, I started to see problems. And then, my justification was like, well, these are people that are living online all day. So obviously they're not, the cream of the crop. But then it's like, oh, well, no, there's priests and there's,
Well, Peggy's quite active too in the group.
Yeah.
She posted the other day, I got to say this just because I want it on record. Adam remembers it. I don't know if you remember it verbatim, but she posted a thing, and I'm sure it's in regards to certain individuals. And it said, we should all practice this today. And it was an Einstein quote of, don't seek revenge, just ignore people and walk away. And I'm like, man, how antithetical is that?
Yeah, it was like the wise man, ignores or whatever.
Yeah,
That's the same. How do we go from, getting vengeance on your enemies to turn the other cheek? Like that's what that's saying is turn the other cheek. Yeah,
she sounds like a fucking yoga instructor, not a
yeah,
priest.
No. Yeah, I saw
crystal.
I finally ended up unfriending her after that one. It was just like, she was only on there because like I was trying to stay cordial, and then like I kind of forgotten she was on there, and then she just kind of, blended in with any of my like boomer answer anything, with the posts. So like,
That's great.
and yeah, and then I saw that and I was like, oh man, all right, we're done here. Like that's just like I was like I said, it's not that like I'm so far removed from Satanism that I don't, the philosophy is still exactly what it's supposed to be. It's exactly how I got to where I'm at, and it's something I still support. So seeing somebody, I wouldn't be where I'm at without it. So seeing somebody that's supposedly in charge of it, getting it so fucking wrong, it's infuriating. It's like I just can't deal with this anymore. It's
That's why we do this show.
Exactly.
yeah. I mean, like having Gilmore, like, and I don't know, man. I don't know Kevin Slaughter. I know he's also kind of around some other circles that I'm in. But like he wouldn't engage me when I was a member. That's the other thing about those groups is I was putting out killer records. My bands were pretty good, but I post them and nobody would give a shit because nobody had given them the okay to give a shit about the stuff I was putting out yet. There was nobody important saying like this is good. So
they don't want to support the wrong guy, right?
When I met some people, they're like, oh yeah, no, I heard your stuff. Like Les was one of the guys that he really liked my band. I liked his band. Les and I think his name was Matt, the guy from that surf band.
Quintessentials?
Oh no, Les from the Quintessentials, and then I think his name was Matt. He was in that beach party. What were they?
Yeah, Sanji.
Yeah.
Black Magic Beach Party.
Yeah. So I mean, those guys were the only two guys that like they had like listened to my music, and they were like, oh yeah, how come Les would actually share it? He didn't seem to care, but it really felt like until I reached some sort of level of like notoriety within the group, like nobody cared what I was doing. And I thought that was really dumb too, because isn't the point to kind of infiltrate the world with the philosophy? It doesn't always have to be Baphomets on it. Sometimes you can put the philosophy through in other ways. And that's the point, is to infiltrate the world and make a change in real world scenarios. So the fact that I was putting out records and like fairly successful and the band was fairly good, at least fucking listen to it. You know what I mean? At least like it, or like the post. Like you don't have to love my band, but like people would just like scroll right past whatever I was doing. Like I'd written books and like not trying to write any canon, writing my own thing, and nobody gave a shit. But then somebody hosts yet another tentacle love story, and it's got 1,000 shares because it's somebody that has notoriety within the group, and that's not how you get the best out of people, by only promoting things by people's favorites. That's not how you get there. You gotta take things.
Yeah, and it's funny because Peter, when you would hear him in interviews, he would always shit talk, black metal or death metal and say, who would listen to that garbage? And then you would look at their timeline and they would be sharing those bands just because those people towed the line, and that to me speaks volumes. So it wasn't because he enjoyed it, he listened to it, he thought it had value. It was simply because this is a good boy or this is a good girl, so we're going to help them out until they become someone who it no longer serves our interests.
Yeah, no, I mean, I liked the idea. I liked that they promoted some works from members on that timeline. But like, there was a lot of times that it's like, where the fuck is your line? Where are you going to draw a line? Because some of this shit sucks. Like, some of this is awful.
Objectively.
I mean, some people would like put out stuff.
I wanted to add
recorded.
Yeah, you mentioned thousands of shares. I wanted to kind of give my perspective on that. The Church of Satan is a Facebook group. That's basically what it is nowadays. It's been reduced to a Facebook group, and the group is when I left, it was about 300 people. Mm-hmm. They're not as powerful as they lead everybody to believe. They like to drop King Diamond's name as like their famous member. Well, yeah. King Diamond is not affiliated with Peter Gilmore. I met King Diamond a couple months ago. He's not affiliated with Peter Gilmore's business, Church of Satan. So he can stop dropping Peter. Peter can stop dropping King Diamond in the interviews. They're not what they claim to be.
No,
Nobody
and
wants to
you
drop
can
Marilyn
tell.
Manson's name.
Right.
Well, for a while they were so desperate. They're so desperate to cling to that world of modernity, that they'll say that they're like, well, like satanic, like by proxy, or like, I forget what they call them, but like, pretty much like, they might not be members of the Church of Satan, but they have these satanic values. Like they'd be like, oh, well, Lady Gaga is basically a Satanist. And it's like, no, she's
Yeah.
fucking not, man. Like, no, just like they're so desperate to like cling to this, like this fame whore mentality. It was clear. It was
Don't you
clear.
know we got scientists and people all, in high profile positions?
Yeah, no, and somebody would be like, "Oh, do you think Lady Gaga's a member?" And no, she's not a fucking member. Like, there's fucking 20 of you, and you're all here. But then they'd be like, "Well, they can't. Nobody will ever know because they won't, ever admit to it or release
Yeah.
the records." And it's like,
I was
get out
invited
of here.
to Coven, the Coven show with Jinx Dawson, Coven, the old school classic rock
Yeah,
witchy band, and they needed some skulls for their tour. So I obliged and brought them a few skulls, and I got to hang out with Jinx backstage, and she knew nothing about the tenets of Satanism. She was basically theistic, which she was a very nice lady. I'm not talking shit about her, but the way the Church of Satan promoted them, and there's pictures of Jinx with Peter at the Devil's Reign. I'm like, lady,
yeah.
But you better not read a book.
this lady is not affiliated with the Church of Satan whatsoever. Has no concept of what Satanism actually is.
I, you know, I don't know why they want to be relevant so desperately. Like they on one hand they'll say like the Church of Satan itself, like the administration only exists to say like what is Satanism and what is not. Like when something happens in the press, like that's supposed to be their only role, supposedly.
Mm.
But I mean, just like when I joined and the 50th anniversary, and it's like, you guys better come to this because nothing like this is ever going to happen again. It happens every fucking year at that Devil's Reign thing. They had to find a way to make it a yearly event that they could cash in on.
If you
And
pay attention to that, the attendance gets smaller and smaller every year, becomes less and less relevant. And the
and
last one I saw pictures of was just East Coast people because it's in Florida. Nobody
yeah,
from the West Coast flew out there, and I would wager that they've never sold a piece of art. Peter Gilmore claims that he is an art curator. Well, as
yeah,
far as I am aware, he's not a licensed art appraiser. He doesn't fall under the realm of an art curator. He can be a self-proclaimed art curator, but it's a fucking joke. Nothing has been sold. No art pieces have been sold from that art show. Um, yeah.
yeah. No, he's not the one curating that book, man. He does like some of those artists are like pretty, established artists like in the underground. They're not all. That's the other thing is they kind of put those books forward as if it's all from members, and like it's
Right.
like
It's,
5 members, and it's a lot of actually established artists in the art world that just want to be a part of it, that have nothing to do with the COS. But
yeah.
that's what it's again, nothing stays special. Like we're gonna have this event, and everybody needs to come, and you pay your $300 or whatever, but then, oh yeah, by the way, don't forget to come to the other event in December, and yeah, we're gonna do that one every year now. And I thought it was like a one-time thing, and then it's just like every year this Devil's Reign book's coming out. I think I ended up having like 3 of them before I was like, oh, I'm fucking, they got me. Like,
It's like it's like
I got my subscription.
how many farewell tours or Kiss on right now? It's kind of the
Yeah.
same concept.
No, it's it's so frustrating.
It's
Constantly
funny.
being told.
No, go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying, constantly being told that this is like limited edition or this is special, but I fucking betcha I could get online and I could find a copy of the first Devil's Reign book still. I
Yeah.
guarantee I could get it. Probably for about what I bought it for in the first place.
Yeah, for sure. I was just going to say it was just kind of sidebar, a little anecdote that I thought was kind of humorous. So Matt Skiba from Alkaline Trio,
Yeah.
he was a COS member. He's good friends with Boyd Rice. Boyd and him are still to this day very close. Well, now he plays in Blink 182. And he's playing in a pretty large scale band, and of course, his audience became much bigger. And recently, he posted something on social media. It was a photograph of books he was reading, and one was Might Is Right. And the comments, it's just worth going and looking at the people saying, "What is this misogyny? You owe us an explanation." And they're like, their whole entire worlds are like crashing down. And I can only imagine management and the people at Blink going, "Oh my God, what have we gotten ourselves into? Matt, you got to take this down." And he hasn't capitulated yet. But I just found that kind of funny. It's like, people see that book and they make such wide sweeping generalizations. I mean, I got the new authoritative edition from Underworld Amusements. It's a great looking book. Peter does the foreword in it, but he of course had to mention, he took out the racism and the anti-Semitism though. It's like, do you really need to point that out? I mean, clearly he did, but this idea that we have to now cater to these people and say, hey, look, our founder wasn't a racist. He wasn't, an anti-Semite. It shows the lack of spine and capitulation on their part and them acquiescing to the mob.
The offended people.
Yeah. I saw that he was writing that. I didn't buy that book because because he wrote the introduction. I saw that he was writing the introduction, and I said, how the fuck is he going to justify that? Like, what's going to, and I know a lot of people that read it, and they said he basically undermines the whole work in his one page, his big 1 or 1.5 page, intro. So does that copy have that stuff edited out?
Not to my knowledge. I mean, I haven't read it like I have like the older copies that I have, but I'm pretty certain that Slaughter and company would have kept it true. I'm almost certain.
What you said. I was just like, whoa, did they actually edit that out? No, okay. So
no, Peter just basically saying, hey, LaVey took that out when he was LaVey actually putting out the Satanic Bible. Correct, yes.
Yeah, no. There's a huge similarity between the Satanic Bible and Might Is Right. I mean, when I read them, it's the same voice with the same kind of passion. It's the same kind of reflection in a lot of it.
Yes.
And he used quite a bit of it. Yeah, he left out the anti-Semitism and stuff, obviously, because he was Jewish, but he took out some things that didn't work for his philosophy. And then
he wouldn't have put that in the book. Like, by the way, I left this part out so you guys can know I'm a good guy. It's the good guy badge, and then that's exactly what Peter was looking for there.
Right.
Yeah. Right. No,
he did it intentionally.
He took out the stuff that didn't matter for his philosophy, and the stuff that was he took the stuff that was like the guts of it, and he used it, and that's what he did with a lot of books, and to undermine an entire book, and to I could not understand why does Underworld Amusements still cater to, what could the COS possibly be doing for them? I mean, haven't they gotten to a point where they don't need to cater to the COS and let, Master Gilmore write his little intro so that he can, be just like Anton LaVey? I was really kind of like questioning why that was even a thing that happened. I could see why they put it out, and I really kind of wanted to read it, but it's like
it's a great looking book.
That now, I feel like a part of that's going to go to this thing that I'm not in anymore, and I was like, I just can't bring myself to do it.
Yeah, I purchased that
it's
before
a relevant.
Yeah. What's that?
It's a strive to remain relevant. I own a copy of Might Is Right that LaVey did the forward in, and why would I need to buy the one that Gilmore did? Why didn't I buy it?
Well, it's also to serve a purpose of like saying, well, Anton LaVey did it, and then Peter Gilmore did it, to still further justify that he's the correct person to be leading, to further conflate them, so that he's more like Anton LaVey, so that he can keep saying stuff that Anton LaVey told me privately, or Anton LaVey was heard to have said this, or I know he said that, and people go, okay, well, great, then we'll rip that page out. And I didn't know that he changed his mind later, and he thought that we should all, turn the other cheek. I don't even know how, I don't really know the history of how Peter became the leader of the Church of Satan, but,
He bought it.
I have bought it.
Literally.
Yes. No, I heard it from Blanche's mouth. He bought it.
Oh, well, that's a great investment. But,
I have witnesses that heard Blanche tell the entire story that Peter and Peggy were not the first choice to lead the organization. I heard it from her mouth, in person.
Yeah, LaVey extended that offer to Boyd Rice initially.
I was going to say, I knew that Boyd Rice, had always had claimed that he had the actual stake as the, because he claimed himself, leader of the Church of Satan, and then his first act as that was to disband the Church of Satan. And I feel like that's the reality we should have gone with, rather than see what it's turned into now.
LaVey told him, "I feel like I created a monster."
It's such a, and I don't know, for how does Blanche feel about them taking this in such a hugely different direction than its intention, or does she have the same, boomer genes? I hate saying like boomer thing, but like that's what it fucking is, and is she kind of feeling the same way that like, we should all be accepting? Because I mean, I don't know, she might still get a stipend from the COS.
She's an activist, man.
Oh, I'm sure she does. She is censored by them, is my opinion. And that's just my opinion. She's told what to think and what to do, and yeah, I'm sure she receives a stipend from the whole deal.
Well, I'm still waiting for that new, that new Church of Satan book. That she's been working on for 3 or 4 years. I have a feeling that that's something that I have a feeling that anything that's going to shed any light on the actual inner workings of Anton LaVey's mind are going to be no longer welcome. I think that they're going.
Yeah, I'd like to back up my claim with the whole story about Leiba's book and Blanche giving me Leiba's book to send back to Leiba, showing that there's distrust amongst the top ranks of the organization. Blanche didn't want me to tell Peter and Peggy. She wanted me to do it on the sly to send this book, The Stinking Ass, back to Stephen Leiba as a favor, and I did. But, looking at it now, that was a big eye-opener when that happened. Like, wow. The fact that Peter would throw away a book that was so dear to Anton LaVey that, you couldn't trust Peter to put that in the archives of the Church of Satan. That speaks volumes.
Do you remember when, Adam, when you were talking about the pieces of the house, the Black House, and people were just referring it to as like pieces of wood? I can't believe you acted like it was a part of the Holy Cross. It's just pieces of wood. People don't give a shit about Anton LaVey's legacy.
Right. It is a piece of wood, but it's the point that I'm making.
There's no sentimental value with it.
Totally discredit the point. The point is that Peter Gilmore took the time to write a bogus essay and still will not back down, even though he's been proven wrong. There's photographic evidence. We had Diego Domingo on the Devil You Know podcast, explained how he collected the pieces, was friends with Anton LaVey, was friendly with Blanche, went to the house, visited many times. Yeah, but it didn't happen. He wasn't there.
He snuck under a fence, don't you know?
Right, yeah. Right.
So what Gilmore's claim is that like those pieces were faked?
I don't know about that, but Peggy said that Peter wrote that essay to protect his members from buying items on eBay that might be false, fake.
Yeah, that they don't have a cut of.
I don't need Peter Gilmore to look out for me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, no, yeah. anything
be
that's
careful,
COS
be careful how
related,
you
say
spend
that.
your money, but keep giving me my money. Shit.
Yeah.
I'd also
You know,
like to add, I didn't buy the piece of the Black House. It was given to me as a gift.
it's you know, another thing that I would see is that I don't know if you guys have talked about it before, the fact that, you know, Peter and Peggy have a public Amazon list, and it's kind of expected for members to buy them birthday presents and anniversary presents. How fucking silly that is.
I've heard through the grapevine, and I'm sure this is credible, that there's a specific member who's not really active anymore, still nonetheless definitely a Satanist, a very wealthy individual who would buy Peter the most expensive item on his Amazon list every year, and just because Peggy didn't like him, didn't get a thank you for it.
That's cuck with a capital C.
Right.
Oh, I have no doubt about that. Like, you know,
Because he's not on the.
I mean, I did it. I bought them something off their fucking Amazon list because, like, I was totally like, I don't know why I did, but you know, I was kind of caught up in the thing, and this was all new, and I was like, okay, there's got to be something here. Maybe, you know, if I just, you know, I'll do this stupid thing, and, like, you know, if I, you know, it's just kind of, maybe if I'm following suit, I will get to the next part until you know, I was pretty satisfied that there is no next part. I've seen what there is to see. Um, so, but yeah, I looked at that list, and it's just like, the idea that they even have a public, they know that they're in a position of being influential to these people, having a list like that out there, and it's, you know, you're not forcing anybody to buy anything, but you are encouraging people to buy you things. You are.
It's implied. It's implied.
Yeah, and people that buy really nice stuff get a shout out on the, you know, group, and um, it's really underhanded to know what kind of influence you have on people and to try to take them for anything you can. Then they started pushing, like, to donate money for the archives or whatever. And it's like, do you need folders? I got folders. I'll send you some folders. I got some, you know, some plastic sleeves you can slip stuff in. But for a while they were taking donations for the archives, and I couldn't really wrap my mind around that either. What exactly is that money going to go for? What are the archives exactly, and how are they maintained? Everything's so kind of, you know, she'll take a picture of, like, the rusty staples from stuff that she's doing, but, you know, what are these archives, and where are they? Are they in the Black House or in their house?
Well, I know a little bit of that. I know that there was a pod delivered to New York from California that was full of items from 6114. And I know that The Stinking Ass by Stephen Leva was left out to be returned by me. I suppose that's the archives they're referring to.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we're probably just paying their storage bed fees. Like, I imagine that's what the donations were. It's probably just all in a storage shed, and we're paying the rent. Yeah, I mean, and then that became a little more prevalent too, is that asking kind of, and the kind of implying that gifts for birthdays and for Mother's Day, that one fucking blows my goddamn mind. That
Wait a minute, what?
People buy her things for, like, Mother's Day, because she calls everybody her satanic children or whatever, and it's like, that's.
Oh my God.
I don't know that it was a lie. I just remember saying that this is a very weird thing. This is not part of Satanism to have a by
This is just fandom.
Mother. Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
Does he still call himself the Maestro, or since everybody who dubbed him that has quit, did he change it back?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I heard some of his music.
Yeah, I can make it on
Stuff.
a launch pad in about 2 seconds.
Remember those things in the 80s when we were kids? They're like little keypads you could like make like, little tunes on. I feel like,
Yeah.
I could probably write it on that shit. Yeah, it's just it's such posturing and such phony bullshit.
Well, he is an academic, and I believe he has a degree in music.
Did you read the Isle of the Disgruntled, the essay that was written about us?
Yes. Yeah, I don't remember it offhand. I do. I didn't know enough to know exactly who he was talking about because I haven't been, in the circle long enough. But yeah, no, I think I saw one of you guys mention it, and I went and read it. And
But get to the point.
Get to the fucking point. You know what's funny is they are looking like the Isle of the Disgruntled. They truly are. Like they should
exactly
shine a mirror on themselves.
Projection.
no. To me, it's like, the fact that you took time out of your day to write this thing, and yeah, no, I mean, it's like just more of his writing and people have said like, why isn't he writing when I was in there? There's people always saying like, oh, I wish Peter would write more stuff, and then he kept reposting the same post every year for like Equinox and stuff, and so this is what he decides that he finally needs to step in and like and address and write is just hey,
Well, it
don't listen to them.
makes me happy because I know that I hurt some feelings, and they fucking deserve it.
Well, they know what we're saying is the truth.
Yeah.
That's why, and I think it's really hitting a nerve.
And
I
they
think
know
people are.
come.
Well, there's more to come, and there are people that are privately probably questioning and asking questions, and I think things are getting. It has to be, because people reach out to us all the time, not necessarily that want to come on the show, but are like, hey, we support what you're doing, we agree,
I get screenshots all the time of their private forum.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? I'm so glad I'm gone.
Yeah.
But
So,
I think her post with the Einstein quote was reactionary because I think that they're in fear of more to come, and she's trying to hush her minions to not poke at us and get us to say more because she's in fear of what is to come, and there is more to come.
Yeah, with new people becomes new insight.
Right. We aren't stopping anytime soon.
Well, yeah, I mean, for me, I was seeing all this stuff while I was still trying to justify to myself like how this is valid, this has worth. I just need to find it. I just need to find the right people. And I never spoke out about it because I never, it would have, not really done anything. Because I thought there was just this thing I needed to get past to maybe see, what was going on. But there has to be a lot of me's. There has to be a lot of people. Not everybody is, just looking for Peggy to like their post on Facebook. There were some people, and I'm sure that there are some people that are actually reading and they're actually doing things in the world, and they have to be seeing what's going on. It's just a question of when they're going to finally say that like their $200. It's as soon as you're okay with like having gotten had for $200, then maybe they'll come out.
I heard somebody say, I'm not going to say who it was, but I heard somebody say that their membership is like an old Metallica shirt. That it represents what it once was, and Metallica might suck now, and I'm not wearing the new Metallica shirt.
Watch it.
But I'll still wear my Ride the Lightning shirt because it was one thing at one time. So there are people that hold on to it for nostalgic purposes that don't like what's going on now. There are other people that are actually really successful that I've spoken with that said, you know what, it wouldn't benefit me at all to make a stink and leave. I'm just going to kind of fade out. I respect that. That's fine. If you want to whatever you need to do. If you hey, this place is open. If you want to come on and air your grievances, anybody's welcome to come.
Yeah, unlike them, we're not trying to proselytize. We're just, this is a place where people can come if they want to hear the truth, if they want to stay in, the shadows and be lied to, that's their prerogative.
This kind of this thing is infiltrating all of like occultism. I don't know of any,
Politics is downstream of culture.
I know people involved in a lot of different orders and stuff, and even the OTO, it's the same stuff where they're trying to take out all the stuff that Crowley said that was like racist, and trying to belittle him, and it's not about him, it's about where we're moving forward. And it's like, nope, that's not how it works with any of that. That's not how it works with the founders and the people who write the actual books. You can't just say it's not about them. Like, it is about them. They invented it.
Absolutely.
So this is it's happening in a lot of circles. So I mean, I've seen it just because I've been around. Now that I feel unshackled to associate with who I want to associate with, read the books I want to read, dabble in this or that without having to fear that somebody's gonna find it out and call me a theist. It's definitely, it's a problem. It's a huge problem. But then when I saw that all of those places, that the COS was actually banning members, actually like kicking them out, that was why I decided, like, I'll go on and talk some shit, because it's not to the point now where it's not where it's just like, oh well, it wasn't for me, and I moved on. It's to the point of, like, it's deceptive.
It's nefarious.
It's not what it says to be. It's not just bad for the COS. It's bad for all of it. It's bad for. It's not a good thing. They're lying. They're being deceptive. And they're kicking out members. Like, that blows my mind. Kicking out members for having a conservative opinion on a topic. Mind blowing that can still be the same philosophy that is based in the Satanic Bible. It can't be, and that's why you guys need to be doing this, is because it can't be. And there needs to be people in other organizations doing the same thing. So what you guys are doing is, like, it's definitely a good thing. And like you said, you kind of said, like, we're not detracting, and you're not detracting at all. The philosophy is the philosophy. Nobody in here is saying, well, I think that the philosophy should be this. I think that this should change about the philosophy, and that's why I left, because the philosophy needs to catch up with the times. It's the actual organization doing that. They're the ones that are detracting. So yeah, man, you guys keep doing what you're doing, man. They're the ones that are detracting from the philosophy and what it is. The books are all out there. People can read them, and you guys have person after person on, and it's like, you can't just think that we're all full of shit. That we're all, and we're not
we're not having kooks on. The people that we're having on have credibility, are well spoken, have applied the philosophy in their life. You obviously included in that circle, so we're very pleased to have had you on the show. I feel like this will be very eye-opening for people.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. If I can stop somebody from sending them $200, if I can help be a part of that, don't do it.
Yeah, for sure.
Don't do it.
Excellent, man.
Save your money. Go out and have an indulgent meal with somebody you care about. That's more satanic than sending Peter and Peggy $200 so they can go get fat at the Culinary Institute.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I can almost feel what they'll say when they see that I did one. Like they're gonna pull out like old letters to them or something and be like, "Well, he said he was never gonna detract."
Well, they did that with
That's
Labo.
why. Oh yeah.
Oh, they did that with me
I mean,
too.
Yep.
They posted the letter that Peter wrote to Cheryl. You know.
Oh, I forgot
faith.
That was fucking infuriating. That was fucking.
As a man, yeah.
Well,
to write your wife.
as a man, he won't talk to you on the phone. I can't call him and say, hey, you know, can you please clarify this? Can you explain this? He won't do it. He wants to craft up this fucking email that he crams so many words in it that he could actually have summed it up in 3 sentences. And he throws a jab in there. I explained it many times that, you know, then I reply back and I throw a little jab in there because he pissed me off. And pretty soon we're totally in disagreement about everything. When we could have just picked up the phone and he wouldn't have even talked to me that way from the beginning.
No, he literally said, man, that if you misgender someone, then you're a bigot and you cannot be a Satanist. You know, I always thought that, you know, when you're seeking vengeance on your enemy, somebody who does you wrong, you want to hit them below the belt. You want to, you know, and then that's what the Satanic Bible says. So wouldn't you want to not use that person's pronoun because you know that's going to hurt him the most? For him to protect a certain class of people is just beyond the pale.
Right. And that's how you get a protected class. People ask us how are transgenders and LGBT a protected class? Well, there's your fucking example right there.
You could do a whole episode on it. You know, when Coca-Cola has your back, you're no longer the counterculture. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. When you share your politics with Burger King and, you know, the Methodist
right.
church down the street, it's not Satanism anymore. You know, when you fly the same flags that they're flying at the church down the street in front of your house, it's not the same thing anymore.
Well, it's just every time he is in an interview, he just wants to be like, no, we're nice guys. We're not the evil people that you think we are. You know, they want this like good guy badge, man.
Explain to me how a bigot can't be a Satanist. You can take the
I mean, bigoted exactly. I mean, that's the whole thing about apolitical is like this philosophy is malleable to an extent that a lot of worldviews can fit in this and utilize this philosophy and still be satanic without agreeing on any politics. But to say that that's not accurate is it's fucking mind blowing. Because I also remember like when Trump was running for president, there was a whole lot of people trying to categorize him as a possible Satanist. Like, oh yeah, he's the most satanic president we've ever had, and so how can I remember a lot of people talking about it. There's discussions about it in the group, and then now.
I would argue that. I would say that he has certain characteristics that he applies to philosophy, whether it's conscious or subconscious, I don't know. But I mean, I see him using greater and lesser magic a lot.
Yeah,
that's my personal opinion. Yeah.
A couple years later, you know, you go ahead and you say that on there, and you're running risk of being, you know, excommunicated. You know,
right.
And just any time that something's not allowed to be said or allowed to be questioned, like it's got to know it's bullshit. It's always bullshit. No, it's crazy that. Well, I mean, and the other thing is like when he left because he was doing the Antifa thing, and he was like fighting fascism, and I mean, because he thought that was going to sell more records than what he was doing before.
Of course.
And, you know, he resigns, gave up his priesthood because they refused. Like, and he got in these huge arguments with Peter about not being political and stuff. And it's just crazy to me that exactly what he wanted, which is super unsatanic. He was right to leave. That's bullshit that you'd want to, you know, try to push your personal agenda. But the fact that they actually have gone and done that in just that short amount of time, from telling and like, oh, maybe you are better off going, which they were pretty upset about because at the time was like one of the only
some success,
and he was one of the few at the
only
time. Like the kind of success that they care about, which is if you're not actually sending them money, you better be like very public. So when he
Right.
did that like festival with like a lot of people in like Germany or whatever, then that was a big deal for them because all they saw was thousands of dollar signs, thinking like, oh, if he's maybe they'll start signing up, maybe we can
Well, yeah,
start
when I see
collecting fees.
people like have like, the swastika with the line through it, I'm like, yeah, congratulations. You agree with 99.99% of the population. There's nothing brave
Yeah.
about that. But who likes Nazis? Like maybe like 1% of people.
Yeah, no, we were, he was a really good friend of mine, but he went that full route, and I went, I stopped. I stopped paying attention to politics altogether. I stopped,
Hmm.
I started using that energy to focus on the task at hand with my life, getting shit in
Yeah.
order, providing for my family, buying a house. And he really berated me about it. Like, there's no more, hey man, do what's important to you. It's with us or against us, 100%. And it blows my
That's
mind.
one thing that stands out about the 50th anniversary to me was at the ritual after the ritual when played. It just struck me as very Christian. In fact, John said it. I was sitting at the same table with John, Marlene, and John's all, too churchy for me. And it was like awkward silence, and everybody heard it. And I was like, oh, fuck. But yeah, I felt that. I'm like, this is Christian music. I don't know why it's here.
Yeah, no, his stuff does sound a lot like the kind of like that like the stuff I'd hear in like youth group when I was a teenager, like the Christian kid would bring in a new CD from some sort of like skillet or something. Like, yeah. No,
Most
I'm
of the
surprised
guys,
he hasn't gone that.
well, a lot of the guys that go that Antifa route, not saying he did it because, I mean, I don't claim to know what his intentions are, what's in his heart, but so many guys do it just for the pussy. They just do it to get laid.
He's doing it to sell records, 100%.
Yeah.
And he's, I mean, as I got to know him, I realized how impressionable he actually was. That's why he fell so hard for Satanism and pushed that so hard, but then could so easily flip and be this whole different thing. He's just really impressionable.
Yeah.
That's what it boils down to.
Yes,
But yeah,
unfortunately,
no,
social media has kind of been a downfall for the COS, but it's also been able to be a mirror and expose them for what they are.
no, I mean,
Yeah.
like I said, man, I'm glad it's there because,
Yeah.
I don't want to be mistaken for what they say that this is.
Right.
Yeah, no, they had a real problem with me like touching Paul's books or I didn't know that Jack Donovan was a member at the time.
Yeah.
That I mentioned.
Way
reading
of
his
Man is
book.
a great book. Yeah.
Yeah, no, they were not happy. I pretty much fell out of favor then, and then like I could
Did they
tell.
say why? I mean, was it because of the whole like BS that they are, white supremacists?
No, I mean he no when he talked. I think when he was telling me about all these terrible things about Charles Manson, that he was also trying to kind of tell me, also the rest of the gang. I think that they were trying to, because he said Charles Manson was a bum and a racist and all this, and so I mean I think he was just trying to kind of speak for who he thought I was surrounding myself with, and
Yeah.
yeah, no, I mean I think he was a little, I think there's always a little bit of fear in them too.
Yep.
That they don't want you to talk to Boyd Rice or Nicholas Schreck or because they might tell you something that goes against what their narrative is, which is that Peter's this was this chosen like savior of the COS when
Yeah.
he's not even the first choice, and he bought it. Man, that's
He's so
that's the thing.
hokey.
That makes it so much like even more like what the fuck? Like
Sean, I'm gonna send you something in Messenger, and it really goes into detail on what happened when LaVey passed, with the organization. And a while ago, I sent it to Jeff. But read it and tell me what you think.
But it's like, so they basically just auctioned it off, like, just,
Yeah.
it just makes, like, why did it just makes me feel like I really wasted a whole lot of time. I should have just stopped when I read the books and then, like, just not even, like, wasted that whole 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, it was for me. If I could go back, I wouldn't change it because I met some great people, and it made me grow as an individual. It was like something that I needed to do.
Well, I feel like you're
I,
now in a position now to really expose them, being a previous member too.
right,
Yeah, I
but
mean, yeah, no, I mean, like, again, the philosophy, is there, and I guess true is that, like, I didn't want to join until, like, I had really met these goals. So maybe I would not have met those goals if I had actually hadn't had the ambition to join. So, yeah, I mean, I'm glad it was there, but holy shit,
I,
man, like,
it threw some tools in my tool bag and how to deal with certain people and how to identify certain people. Uh, so yeah, like I said, I wouldn't go back. It's good.
well, it also was a crash course in, like, as I'm, like, doing involving myself with other circles, and I know better than to be affiliated. Like,
Yeah,
it's the same thing. Paul from Operation Werewolf. He's a really good guy. I get along with him, but as far as his whole, like, um, I don't buy I don't buy that all that stuff hook, line, and sinker. I know better now than to, like, get into it. I always know there's always something under. Um, and no different. He's it's a brand more than it is a philosophy. But
Well, I kind of
it
noticed
definitely
that,
helped
like
me.
with Jack Donovan and Paul Wagoner, like Operation Werewolf and Jack, it almost ended up turning them into like internet models. Like it went from like this hard philosophical viewpoint, and then I just
Yeah.
started seeing just pictures of them like in suits and stuff, like looking out over the
Nope.
ocean all majestically, and I'm like,
Yep.
oh man, it's like you got a personal assistant just following you around with a camera.
No, it started to really reek of. I mean, now I never, like, so, like, I went to, like, their property and stuff, and
Yeah,
I've met Paul a few times, and I've no he's doing his thing, and I take no issue with him. Um, but I probably take no issue with him because I never went full scale, like, into this Operation Werewolf thing. Like, I read the books, I have a couple T-shirts, but, like, I didn't, like, plan my life around it, or else I would have ended up in this same situation as I did with the COS. I kind of saw that coming. And then if I was somebody that had invested as much as some of these people have into his brands and his ideology,
buying
and seen
property
him,
near them, right?
yeah, and seen him turn the way that, he's turned a little more soft. Some of that militant stuff's been taken out, and now it's more focused on just the lifting, and the
Right.
philosophical stuff is being reeled in, and now it's a push towards temporal power. So, everything's becoming subscription based, and he's
Yep.
posting himself in suits, and you need to have it is very, very Peter and Peggy Satanism. Like,